64 law enforcement officers died from gun violence in 2022, and according to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund, this is a 21% increase over the average of 53 firearms-related deaths a decade ago. Let's bring in Kirk Burkhalter, a professor of law at NYU and also a retired NYPD detective with 20 years of experience, to discuss this disturbing trend plaguing our country. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. My pleasure.
So of these 64 officers fatally shot last year, 11 were ambushed, 4 were inadvertently or mistakenly shot by fellow officers. That and all of the other data we just gave you, what is your reaction just to the idea that more police are dying by gun violence these days?
Well, I have two basic reactions. The first being that, unfortunately, police work has always been inherently dangerous. I worked with police officers that have died at the hands of gun violence, and my father and brother, both retired New York City sergeants, also worked with police officers that died at the hands of gun violence. The second reaction is that this does track with the general rise that we've seen in violent crime, and also the proliferation of handguns in this country. It's just undeniable, and certainly this is more than likely going to be the outcome of those two factors.
So you said that police work is inherently dangerous. It sounds like you're saying society as a whole has gotten more dangerous, and that has related or translated to police work being more dangerous, but not necessarily police work getting any more dangerous than before.
Well, it's difficult to say whether police work is more dangerous than it was several years ago or less dangerous, because there's a certain factor or aspect of danger. And then once you reach that level, kind of doesn't matter if it goes higher or lower. It's going to be dangerous. I mean, we've seen, if you look at the numbers were twice as high in the late 70s when you had a lot of cops dying by ambush and assassination. So it's just always been a very dangerous job. It's one of the few jobs where, you're expected to put your life on the line. What is disturbing, of course, is the trend that we've seen over the last couple of years since COVID, basically, this rise in violent crime. And we do see the job going to, it was relatively, I won't say safe by any means, but we saw the numbers were pretty low. Maybe 50 or so officers had given their lives over the past 10 years or so. And now, as you mentioned, there's about a 21% increase. So that's quite disturbing. The other disturbing number is the 11 officers who were ambushed. We had 2 officers ambushed here in New York City about a year ago. So that's a disturbing trend also.
Very much so. So then, next question's pretty easy. Well, it's easy for me to ask. I don't know if it's easy to answer. How do you make it safer for police officers? How do you better protect them? You mentioned gun laws before. Is that the key there?
I believe so. For me, the rise in violent crime, the rise in the deaths of police officers, the proliferations of shootings that we see across the country, all circle back to the proliferation of firearms in this country, which is just at an unprecedented rate. Something that's important to remember is every illegal firearm starts out as a legal firearm. Most of those guns, the overwhelming majority, were legally sold to a person, and somehow they find their way into the hands of a person illegally or legally who wants to commit harm. So no matter how we shape it up, you always trace this back to our gun culture. And this is not a Second Amendment issue by any means. I don't mean to imply that, but it's a safety issue. And at some point, we have to ask ourselves, do we need so many guns in society when one of the end results is putting our police officers in harm's way?
That is always the question, is how do you keep the guns out of the people's hands who shouldn't have them without infringing on the rights of the people that can have them? Kirk Burkhalter, thank you for that food for thought.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.